August 25, 1876. The Battle of the Little Bighorn unfolds in a fiery clash that would become one of the most legendary and controversial moments in American history. But what if everything you thought you knew about Custer's last stand was just the surface? Today, you'll hear the untold truth from a Medal of Honor recipient who survived the chaos, a first-hand account that shatters myths and reveals the courage, fear, and raw reality behind the battle. Stay with us until the very end to uncover the secrets buried on that fateful day. This is a story like no other. But before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel to help support our community. The Battle of the Little Bighorn, fought on June 25, 1876, along the Little Bighorn River in Montana, represented a pivotal clash of cultures and forces that forever altered the future of the American West. Sergeant Stanislaus Roy was there, and what follows is his direct account of the fiercest battle in the Great Sioux War, told with unflinching honesty. On June 5th, a severe snowstorm trapped us between the Heart River and O'Fallon Creek in freezing weather. According to Roy, the supply train got no further than the Powder River before turning around, never reaching the Rosebud. We found Native American burial sites in a hollow between Miles City and the Rosebud, where Reno's command rejoined us after his scouting mission near Fort Keogh. Further on, between that spot and the Rosebud, we located a gully holding indigenous graves set within a timbered zone. The troopers of G. Trout desecrated the burial site, taking whatever objects they wanted and throwing the bones into the Yellowstone River. A number of the soldiers cautioned McIntosh that the actions of G Troop were likely to provoke serious consequences later. As we rode alongside the Rosebud, we saw that Indian ponies had grazed the grass down to the soil on each side of the trail for a considerable distance. Roy reports that, on the 22nd, we marched at noon and advanced east into a timber line about a mile from the Rosebud's confluence. We crossed over the ridge, reached the river, and waded across, staying on its western edge. It appears Custer used the same path that is traced by the modern roadway. Roy recalls being told that Bob Jackson and Billy Cross never forded at Fort A, and not a single person remembers seeing them during the intense combat in the valley or on the river's western bank whatsoever, which creates lasting questions about their fate. On the western side of Fort A, there is a narrow strip of timber approximately 50 yards wide. Reno's advance guard was made up of companies G, A, and M in that order. After we had crossed the river, we formed a battle line, and just as we were settling into position, I heard multiple men shout, "There is Custer!" He could be seen in the distance on the opposite bank of the river, up on the bluffs to our right. We dismounted about 200 yards from the timber and advanced the skirmish line to the edge of the trees. The companies were positioned with G on the right, A in the middle, and M holding the left. Roy states there were absolutely no trees to the right of our position, only completely open terrain. He is certain of this detail, and it forms a vital part of the landscape's layout. Ahead of the skirmish line's right flank, a group of native warriors was concealed in the woodlands, firing on us from a diagonal angle to the southwest. The skirmish line actually extended west from the tree line's edge, not from the location I had initially marked on the map. Roy witnessed Charlie Reynolds, wounded and dismounted, struggling to keep pace with the retreating troops, his pistol clutched in his hand. After my own horse was shot, it became frantic, but it luckily carried me away to safety. We were ordered to fall back from the skirmish line and retreated roughly 50 yards into the woods to retrieve our horses and regroup. This was a time of extreme confusion, with bullets flying past and commanders shouting orders. I encountered Wallace, who was mounted and directing G Troop out of the area. When I asked him where my horse was, Wallace told me to simply take any horse you can get and get out of here now. We all exited the timber from its southern end, right in the midst of the chaos and panic. Roy recounts that he was on the skirmish line for approximately 20 minutes, fired about 20 rounds, and observed ravines near the ridge filled with indigenous combatants who were shooting at the line from an oblique angle. He also saw warriors on the other side of the river, directly across from the woodland, shifting eastward through the trees. As I was entering the timber, I saw Gilbert emerging with 4 horses, one of them mine, and I was relieved to have found my mount. I mounted my horse and followed the column, yelling at Gilbert to come with us and to hurry. I was located behind Gilbert and exited the timber quite late, which made me anxious to catch up. About 75 to 100 yards from the tree line, I saw Charlie Reynolds, wounded and on foot, making a brave stand and resisting fiercely, a true testament to his courage. Moments later, my horse was hit in the jaw, just behind its mouth, causing it to fall. Yet the animal quickly rose again, and I managed to remount, grateful to be back atop my horse. When the horse fell, my sling was thrown over my head, and I lost my carbine, leaving me with only my pistol for defense, which was concerning. I crossed the river where the water reached about the height of my horse's belly. I began ascending the bluff immediately, but my horse was bleeding so profusely I had to abandon it partway up, a significant problem. I overheard some troopers saying that Reno's force was planning to join Custer's, and I informed Captain Moylan I had lost my horse. He replied, "Well, find yourself another one," which I was eager to do, as being on foot would be perilous if the unit had to advance. About 10 minutes after reaching the top of the bluff, Bentine's column arrived, and we discussed linking up with Custer. It was at that time I raised the issue of obtaining a horse with Moylan. I returned to the river about halfway down the slope and retrieved my horse, relieved to be remounted and feeling more secure. Shortly afterward, Bentine entered the area, followed by Weir, who moved forward and then retreated, pursued by Sioux warriors. Heavy combat persisted for the rest of the day until nightfall. On the night of the 25th, Lieutenant King was badly wounded. During the evening of the 25th, we constructed defensive barricades, a necessary measure. After the shooting ceased, Major Reno approached Captain Moylan and requested a non-commissioned officer to lead a 6-man picket detail in front of Company A's line, a highly hazardous task. Moylan asked several sergeants to volunteer, but Hayne was injured, Fowler declined, and McDermott was too indispensable as first sergeant because Easley was exhausted from guarding the previous night. Then Captain Moylan turned to me, and I accepted the duty on the condition I could choose my own team of volunteers. The privates who stepped forward were Connor, Gilbert, Bancroft, McClurg, and Harris, all brave soldiers prepared to confront the peril. One more trooper initially volunteered, but withdrew at the last instant, which was an irritating setback. I offered to take a relief shift for another soldier. After the men were in position, I asked Major Reno for my final orders. He instructed me to have them depart individually, as the Sioux were still patrolling our edges, their movements clearly audible in the night. Reno emphasized that it was essential to keep 2 men conversing and alert at all times to combat the severe exhaustion we were all experiencing. If we were attacked at dawn, we were to scatter and retreat to the barricades, but not as a unit to minimize our visibility and avoid presenting a single target. This instruction was extremely important. We performed the picket duty precisely as directed, and when the Sioux charged at first light, we withdrew to the primary defensive lines securely and in an organized manner. My captain later praised me for my actions that night, a recognition I greatly valued. The intense combat commenced at sunrise on June 26th and continued without interruption until about 10 a.m. We saw hundreds of warriors riding around us at high speed, unleashing a hail of bullets into the sagebrush in front of our lines. A brief rain fell around noon on the 26th, allowing the men to use their ponchos to collect a small amount of water, though it was only a minimal supply. Tragically, F.C. Mann, a civilian packer, was killed on the morning of June 26th, a somber reminder of the battle's toll and a loss that was profoundly felt. F.C. Mann had been posted behind a barricade on Company A's line, peering over the top with his carbine positioned about 3 feet off the ground. After maintaining this position for almost 20 minutes, someone felt something was amiss and, upon investigation, discovered he was dead, shot in the temple, and killed instantly. Remarkably, his body remained upright in its firing posture, still gripping his weapon. Around 11 a.m. on June 26th, we pulled in more dead horses and lengthened our line toward Benteen's area, enhancing the protection for our troops. In my view, Benteen's leadership was crucial to the command's survival. He displayed extraordinary bravery and composure under fire, qualities that earned him great admiration and respect. As our thirst became intolerable, many of us started chewing grass in an attempt to create some saliva in our mouths. Sadly, Cowley was driven to insanity by thirst on June 26th, compelling us to restrain him until his mind cleared. Following Benteen's charge, the craving for water became dire, particularly for the wounded. In response, a number of enlisted men proposed volunteering for a detail to fetch water from the river. The officers approved the plan, but when 19 men stepped forward, they deemed that number too large and limited the party to 12. We issued each man 2 canteens and brought 6 2-gallon camp kettles. Simultaneously, Sergeant Fowler and 4 skilled riflemen provided covering fire from the timber on the west bank, preventing Indian forces from concentrating, which gave us vital support. Despite the suppressing fire from Sergeant Fowler, numerous native fighters stayed positioned along the riverbank, prepared to shoot anyone attempting to collect water. Our descent from the bluff's summit required a hazardous 100-yard dash across exposed terrain to reach the head of the ravine. Fortunately, the ravine itself concealed us from the Sioux until we reached the river. When we got to the mouth of the ravine, we spotted Indians hidden in the brush on the opposite shore, but we withheld our fire to avoid provoking an engagement. The exit of the ravine was merely 20 yards from the water's edge. During the water collection, Madden from K Troop, the third man to make a dash for it, was struck, sustaining a broken leg. Despite his size and the pain, Madden succeeded in crawling back to safety unaided. He requested to be left where he was, believing he would be all right, but was eventually carried back to security before nightfall. The water detail proceeded with extreme caution. The water party consisted of Roy, Gilbert, Madden, Wilbur from M Troop, Bancroft, Harris, Voigt, Peter Thompson, Golden, Tanner, and Coleman from B Troop. Although Roy is not completely certain about the last 3 names, I was the 5th individual to sprint for the water. Inside the ravine, we conducted a roll call and agreed that each man had the option to advance or to withdraw when his name was called. The first man, whose name I cannot remember, returned successfully with a full kettle, and we all had a deeply needed drink, our first in 36 hours. I believe Wilbur was the 4th in the sequence and was injured. After Madden was hit, he crawled back to our location, and we provided him with water and saw to his wound. Then there was a lull of about 30 minutes before the next man ventured out for water again. We stayed within the ravine for almost an hour, hastily gathering water from the river and pouring it from the kettles into our canteens. The ascent back to the hilltop with the crucial water supply took nearly 90 minutes, after which Lieutenant Varnum assumed responsibility for securing it. Dr. Porter distributed the water to the wounded men, but unfortunately it was insufficient to completely satisfy their thirst. As the day wore on, the gunfire from the Indians lessened, and they began to withdraw as dusk neared. Under the cover of darkness, we dug rifle pits to secure our access to the water and replenished our containers, ensuring an adequate supply for the command. That same night, our ranks were bolstered by the arrival of Scout Fred Gerard, Bill Jackson, Lieutenant DeRudio, and Tom O'Neill, a most welcome reinforcement. When I heard DeRudio's voice call out, "Hello!" a sentry, Private George Bott, immediately challenged him. DeRudio quickly gave his name, and the officer of the guard permitted him to approach. We were overjoyed, having previously thought he had been killed in the action. Earlier, on the evening of the 26th, we had observed Indians departing the valley, but we remained skeptical, concerned it might be a ruse. The following morning, June 27th, we led the horses down to drink, and the sight was profoundly distressing. They thrust their heads in up to their eyes, drinking the water ravenously. Shortly afterward, the 7th Infantry Column arrived, establishing their camp in the valley near the spot where McIntosh had fallen. In a generous gesture, the officers from Gibbon's command surrendered their sugar, lemons, and other luxuries to offer some relief for our wounded. Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey into one of history's most legendary and tragic battles. The survivor's story not only reveals the brutal reality behind Custer's last stand, but also honors the courage and sacrifice that shaped our past. If this story moved you or changed the way you see this historic event, please like the video and share it with fellow history lovers. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the untold truths behind America's defining moments. We've only just begun to uncover the stories that history books left out. Stay with us, because the next chapter is coming soon. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember, history is written by the brave.